First and Now is the official BC Lions podcast. We're back after a bye week, so to speak. Yeah, that makes sense. Take a bye week in one of the most exciting sporting weeks on the calendar, but it's Matt Baker and Nick Kowalski broadcasting remotely. The virtual Go-Goat Sports Studios will be back at the Wall Center next week, but Nicky, he's here and he survived.
Yeah,
1 week
back
with
to
Moj at Super Bowl and company.
yeah, back to reality after a unbelievable week in Arizona with the one and only the Moj.
Yeah, tell us about it. We'll take a couple minutes here. We got lots of Lions news. We got lots of it. We got a lot of time to discuss it. But what was the highlight for you?
The highlight for me had to be we were at Radio Row from Monday to Friday, and just having the guests that Moj was able to get an interview for a show, and just to be able to see all of the athletes and the celebrities around. For example, Moj had Joe Montana on our show. We closed the day off with AJ Hawk and Pat McAfee from the Pat McAfee show. As someone on the younger generation, that those were two very cool guests to meet and see live on an interview stage. And there was just a lot of things to do too. The whole city, there was so much going on. We had the privilege to go to some media parties at a couple nights, and then really the bonus part of this weekend was that the waste management tournament was there too. So
Yeah.
we had the Saturday off of work, so we didn't have any work obligations on the Saturday. So me, Julio Caravetta, and Julio's son-in-law right now, we went down to the waste management on Saturday and had a great time there too.
Yeah, Moj knows how to work it down there. He does. And I'm with you. I was lucky to go with him 5 times total. Dallas, Indianapolis, New Orleans, Phoenix, New York. So get to see some pretty cool places. I know you've been to Phoenix recently as last year, but hopefully you get to go to more. Vegas and New Orleans coming up in 2 years, I think. New Orleans, for me, was the best one as far as a Super Bowl host. Again, hopefully you can get there in a couple of years. But Moj puts the work in. It's amazing. You go down there. You mentioned guys like Joe Montana. They'll say, "Hey, Bob, how are you?" Like it's a first name basis with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
One time back when they used to do the media event, what's now called opening night, it used to be media day at the venue. I think so. A tradition he used to do every year was he would interview Chris Berman at media day, and it would be, "Hey, Moj, how's it going?" So yeah, it's impressive. And did I see you mentioned Joe Montana? Did I see he's doing stuff with Guinness? He was wearing a Guinness shirt.
Yeah, that was the product he was promoting, was Guinness.
Well, did you bring back any Guinness? What's going on?
We didn't get any Guinness in return. But Moj definitely, that was part of the content we were doing, was kind of behind the scenes, showing what was going down at Radio Row and how Moj interacts with these guests. So we did capture the first interaction between Montana and the Moj. Seth Rollins was another big interaction that Moj got behind the scenes, and a lot more guests. Yeah, it was incredible, as I'm sure you know.
And your hair is looking great as always. You're going to put this on your resume. You posted this. You can head to nick.kowalski at Instagram. Pat McAfee loves your hair. I mean, that might be the shirt made or something. Pat McAfee loves my hair. What are you doing?
That might be the highlight. I watched and listened. Well, I actually listened to Pat McAfee's daily show, and we had him as our last guest. And another part of my job was to film the entrances, per se, of the guest coming to our table at Radio Row. I often have my iPhone out filming the guest walk up with Moj. And there's a swinging door situation at the end, and we were at the very end of the Radio Row. So there's like the swinging door action to enter the table, or the tables at Radio Row. And Pat was ahead of me, so I have my phone on him, and he opens the door. And I was planning to let him go through the door and just keep my phone on him. And he says, "After you," and then he goes, "Yeah, the hair looks awesome, by the way." And that was an incredible compliment to get, because Pat McAfee's a guy too who does have great hair himself. I know he wears a hat a lot of times now, but he has some great hair on him too. So I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. And I enjoyed that interview the guys did, talking about his transition from being from being a professional player, a punter, made a Pro Bowl, I think 1 or 2 Pro Bowls. I think he did.
Right before he retired, yeah.
And he's carved out, you can argue he's carved out a much better second career, which not a lot of guys can say. But props to him, and good for you. Glad you got to experience that. I wish it's something everyone could experience at least once. Before we shift gears and talk a bit about our football team, what party was the best? Saw you smoking some cigars. What was the nightlife highlight that you can share?
Probably the Jaws and Ditka on the Thursday night. It's a cigar party. Unfortunately, Mike Ditka wasn't able to make it this year, so Brian Urlacher is actually replacing him in that spot. But it's a party where you go into, and the indoors there's drink venues all around, whatever kind of drink you want. There's actually Crown Royal there, which I told the bartender that's from my home. Crown Royal, fun fact, is brewed in Gimli, Manitoba, which is about a half an hour drive north of Winnipeg. So I had a conversation with the bartender about that. But outside, there's this huge venue outside. It was at a hotel setting, and it's just cigar bars everywhere. You can walk up, and there's Dominicans, Nicaraguan cigars, and you can walk up and sample of cigars, take a whole stogie if you like, and that was right up my alley. Same with Moj, so we enjoyed that one.
Awesome, loving it. Good for you, and you should put that on your resume. That Pat McAfee tidbit could lead to some good things. Nick Kowalski back from Scottsdale, Phoenix, Buckeye, all those communities he was hanging out with down in Arizona. He didn't get to the game, but I think that it's the week that makes it. So good for you.
I think we're in the same boat where a house party setting is the best setting to watch any major sports event, right?
Yeah, and the bigger the game, if my team's playing, I prefer to watch alone. Like I had to tell my buddy who was having a few of us over, I had to say, well, we have to see how the NFC Championship goes. If the Niners somehow survive and make it, I'm watching alone. Did it a few years ago when they lost to Kansas City. Was in New Orleans at the game when they lost to Baltimore. But yeah, you're right. It's the week of, and really, I picked Kansas City. I wasn't totally confident, but I just had a feeling Patrick Mahomes would find a way. Andy Reid going with the better coach, and sure enough, another double-digit deficit, and they come through. It's amazing, Nick, the amount of playoff games Patrick Mahomes has trailed by double digits. Both of his Super Bowl wins, he was down 10, right? And he had a big comeback against Houston in the divisional playoffs that year, 24-0. You just can't count this guy out. It was a great game. I know some people are upset about the defensive holding at the end, but you put that aside, that was probably a top 5 Super Bowl for me, entertainment-wise.
Easily, yeah. It really had everything. That football game was back and forth, too, even though you said it was double-digit deficit at one point. But yeah, the Chiefs they found a way again. That second half adjustments they've made, they came out hot on offense in the second half, and it, even with Mahomes and that sprained ankle too, which makes it even more impressive. But the ending did suck, unfortunately. But like James Bradbury admitted, he did give a tug on the shoulder, on the hip of Juju's jersey, and I didn't like the call personally. We can argue this for years, and as I'm sure people will, but. Yeah, it was a pretty classic game, and it just adds to the legacy of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
And one last tidbit: you remember the last Kansas City Super Bowl was the loss to Tampa Bay, and I know everyone will talk about Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, very much a big part of that result. Remember how brutal Kansas City was on the offensive line?
Injured too, yeah.
That's an issue that they addressed after that, and
yep.
That was a difference. Everyone talking about the Eagles' defensive line, Kansas City, and it's a tribute to the scheme and Andy Reid as a top play designer of our generation, finding ways to neutralize that. So, congratulations to Kansas City. So, from a sporting perspective, now CFL free agency. Of course, we'll get excited about the push for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Not in this market necessarily. Spring training is pretty much underway in baseball. We'll try to get to some Mariners games this year, but a big week for the BC Lions. We're going to talk to a new addition here in just a few minutes, Justin McInnis, a national wide receiver who did a pretty good number on us. The game there in August when Nathan Rourke went down, 111 yards and a touchdown. It was a game the Lions won, but some 4 or 5 solid additions, depth additions as well, but addressing a big need at center with the signing of local boy Michael Couture. Of course, Peter Godber departing to Saskatchewan, and we spoke with Michael Couture on Tuesday. This is a guy who's excited to be here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said it. It was a dream come true to become a BC Lion one day, being a local British Columbia boy, and he grew up playing football throughout this province. And he's back, and he's a 2-time Grey Cup champion with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Has plenty of experience playing center in high pressure situations, and he said yesterday in his media interview that that's a situation he excels in, those high pressure moments. And yeah, it's great to have Michael join the club this year, and obviously wish Peter Godber the best of luck too, and as well as the other departures that we had these past couple 48 hours here.
Zach Collaros is a solid quarterback, but he didn't just get good when he went to Winnipeg, Nick. I mean, his record is extraordinary since becoming a Blue Bomber, but they've had the best offensive line in this league for the last 3-4 years. Michael Couture in the middle is a big part of that. So, and he's also going to step in here, Nick, and be a big leader right away, because Joel Figueroa, one of those departures, Suk Chung, one of his teammates with the Bombers, they're going to be the 2 leaders up front there. The likes of Kent Perkins, Phil Norman, Jarrell Broxton likely pencil him in as the left tackle. Remember, he filled in for Fig at the end and in the playoff win over Calgary. So good for Fig finding a fit in Hamilton and getting paid. But, this is why you bring in depth. I mean, some of these guys that I've talked about on this offensive line, just names on a depth chart when they first come here. But a couple of those guys have turned into reliable pieces and will be counted on. We'll do it by position here. Chris Schleger, a guy who played in Montreal, started at both guard and tackle. Again, you pencil him in as a depth piece for now, but who knows what happens in training camp, injuries. That's a guy, if there's someone who goes down or if someone underperforms, maybe a guy who can step in and play a role as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now, as of February 15th, the left side of the offensive line is definitely a training camp battle to watch, and there's a whole pot of names now in the running for those 2 spots. You mentioned Broxton is the front runner right now for the left tackle spot. But there's also David Neville's healthy now. Phil Norman is back. Noah Zern is in his second year. Tyler Packer is still here.
Yeah.
You just mentioned Schluger is now here. Andrew Pearson's another name. So that left guard position, there is a handful of names who have every right to fight for that spot in training camp, and it's going to be an exciting battle.
Pretty much on the opening day of that quote-unquote legal tampering period, Dominique Davis was a guy who received an offer from the Lions. Veteran backup in this league, started with Winnipeg, his formative years with the Ottawa Redblacks. Last year, some spot duty in Montreal. So Antonio Pipkin not being re-signed, Michael O'Connor not being re-signed. This is a guy VA is familiar with as well, of course, Vernon Adams Jr. So Dominique Davis becomes your number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, like you said, familiarity with Vernon. That's good to have right off the bat. But Dominique Davis, he's also someone who has experience in this league. He had multiple starts in Ottawa in 2019. Seems like he has a really good arm, like can really hit that deep ball. It was funny on the highlight tape we posted. We had a couple deep shots from Dominique Davis to Dominic Grimes back in their Ottawa days. So maybe that connection becomes alive on maybe some trick plays or anything like that. But another element to Dom Davis's game is his short yardage. I mean, he had 13 rushing touchdowns last year with Montreal, all in short yardage scenarios, and he really excels in that area, which is we've seen pretty much for decades now in the CFL as an important aspect of the game, and he's someone that can definitely complete that role at a high level.
Yeah, remember Pip to Hatcher for the turning point in the Western Semi. Maybe there's a little bit of that with Mr. Davis. And we encourage you, as always, head to bclions.com. Stephen Chang has spoken with Dominique Davis. There will be an article up there on his edition. We did a Zoom availability with Michael Couture. Very happy to be here, like we said. got a nice written feature on him at bclions.com. We're going to speak with Justin McInnis, kind of talk about where he fits in. Canadian receivers, there's a lot to like there with Jacob Scarfone, Daniel Peterman being back, of course. Javon Katoy entering year 4 with the club has shown he's capable of being a leader in terms of production. So plenty to like with the Lions following day 1-2 of free agency as we record this on a Wednesday. Justin McInnis, former Saskatchewan Roughrider, now a member of your BC Lions, will join us here coming up on First and Now. And off we go to Jacksonville, Florida, the off-season home of Justin McInnis, a newly signed national receiver for your BC Lions. Justin, how are you, sir? Thanks for doing it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I'm doing phenomenal.
Excellent. And speaking of phenomenal, we remember you had a big game against us there in August. I had to be reminded of that because from our perspective, that was the night Nathan Rourke went down. Everything else was kind of blurry from that night, given how crazy it got. But glad you're on our side now. What was it that made you excited to move west?
Just talking to everyone within the organization from the top down. Coming into free agency, I didn't really have a particular play set in mind, but the first day that we were able to receive phone calls and start talking to people, I got calls from everyone in BC, the GM all the way down, and they just showed their excitement about me, and it just made it feel really easy to make a decision come free agency, and I'm super excited, to come to a place that's really excited about having me there.
And you have you're on daddy daycare today too. You've got a little one at home. That must keep you on your toes.
No, for sure. That's kind of my responsibilities right now during the day, is kind of just watch her for a little bit, until I get mom to come home, and that's when it's my time to put in the work.
And you were saying, we were just having a conversation prior to this, your wife is attending nursing school there in Jacksonville. Is that correct?
Yeah. She's in an accelerated program. So yeah, she'll be done her RN degree here soon.
Not a bad place to be in the off season. A little warmer than your home in Quebec, right?
No, for sure. Yeah, the cold. I don't do so well with it anymore. It's hard for me to tolerate.
Yeah, at least you're playing in a dome now. Back to the football part of it, though. What do you like most about this receiving group you're joining, Justin?
And just the excitement. I mean, you see that everyone gets the ball. The ball gets spread out. It doesn't really – there's no favoritism shown, and it just shows that, it seems like they all play for one another. Everyone's excited when they get in the end zone. Everyone's there dancing. They're all there. And I've also had a couple of the guys already message me, excited to have me on board and, told me to get ready to celebrate and, have fun. It just seems like a really close-knit group of guys that, love to play for each other.
Yeah, and from an outsider's perspective last season, I personally thought the 2022 BC Lions were a really fun team to watch. Was that something that you agreed with too? Did you see that going on last season with obviously the Nathan Rourke story, but also how much fun the receivers were having?
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure the whole league was on notice, kind of. Seems like they were kind of unstoppable. Whatever they wanted, they kind of did it, and I'm excited to, help come in and contribute in a room like that with a lot of great guys around.
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of your actual play, you're coming off a season high in yardage, receptions, also got in the end zone twice last season. When you're given the chance to start a full 18 games, what do you think your ceiling is as a receiver?
I feel like it's pretty high, and I know what I'm capable of, and I feel like I'm still yet to play my best football, but I'm ready to go out there and do it in orange for sure. And, for the next couple of years, I'm just excited. And I just feel like, I can definitely be an all-star in this league and be a top Canadian receiver in the years coming.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously you're 6'5", 210 pounds. So that's a great size to have in this league, especially for any BC Lions fans not familiar with your game. What can they expect from Justin McInnis this season?
One thing I know, I'm pretty sure-handed. I like when the ball's in the air. Even if there's people around me, I like to zoom in and catch the ball, whether it's up high, down low. I'm going to be there to catch it. And, just an overall physical presence. I'm not afraid to get my hands on defenders and block also. So an all-around receiver that's ready to come in and work hard and, show BC what I'm about.
What'd you love most about playing in Saskatchewan, Justin?
Oh, it's an incredible fan base. I'm sure a lot of people know, but that stadium is something special and, coming out of that tunnel, everything. But Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing, was just the stadium, and the support from the community was awesome. They have a really good fan base over there.
Did you ever have any fun with Gainer, the mascot? Any good stories about
No,
that?
I didn't, but I know my kids did a couple of times. They had they got a couple pictures, and sometimes caught them in the crowd when they were at the games and stuff like that. But yeah, no, not me personally. I never really had the time to.
He likes to have fun. I mean, when we go there, he's got the stuffed animal of the lion that he likes to put in his mouth and torture. It's all
I didn't
it's all
appreciate
in good
that.
fun. Talking a bit about your background, you grew up just outside of Montreal. I mean, growing up, was it all football all the time? What else were you into growing up there?
I was always kind of a sports junkie. Always around sports. Growing up with soccer kind of seems like every Canadian's first sport, and then moving on to basketball, football, things like that. But it was always football, and everybody always tried to get me to play basketball and do other sports because football in Canada just didn't seem that big at the time. But my heart was always football. So I mean, just growing up, I just kind of committed to football, and that's been my life since I was young.
Who was it that kind of helped you and molded you along the way? Anyone in particular you looked up to when you were deciding to pursue this as a career?
You mean as an athlete?
Yeah, athlete or anyone else. Yeah.
Not really. Football was, I don't know, it was just kind of my thing. I mean, my brother played football, but it wasn't really anyone specific. I just loved football. I loved watching the game. I always loved players Mike Vick and them growing up. Kind of got me into it for real. And then it was just kind of my love for the game that just kind of dawned on me, that realized like, hey, this is something I think I might want to do for the rest of my life. And I saw that at a very young age.
If Mike Vick's someone that you had idolized growing up, are you able to throw the ball too? Are you going to see any trick plays from McInnis this season?
I played quarterback my whole life up until I got to a junior college, actually. So, I mean, I haven't thrown it in a while, but I probably still have a little bit of something there.
It's good to know. Then yeah, you go to Dodge City, is it in Kansas, right? For first year at JUCO. So what was that whole experience like? I know you put up big numbers in that freshman season, but what was that whole experience like?
It was different. I mean, you hear about the JUCO stories and some of the guys there, but in the middle of nowhere, I mean, you hear the saying, "Get the heck out of Dodge." I mean, you don't really want to be there. There's not much. The excitement's kind of a Walmart, but it was neat. You're always with the same people. It's a small community. You find ways to have fun, right? But yeah, I was only there for 6 months. And I think that was kind of my limit. I was like, yeah, I think I'm kind of ready to get out of here now.
So would you have played against like a school like Independence? And the reason why I'm bringing them up is because of the whole Last Chance U Netflix show. Is that a show you have seen or checked in?
Yeah, I didn't watch it all fully, but I caught glimpses of it. But yeah, I remember playing them. They were bad at the time. We beat them pretty bad. Yeah.
And then moving forward, you go to Arkansas State. And I saw a report, too, that you chose Arkansas State over schools like Mississippi State, South Alabama, and Nevada. So what made Arkansas State the most enticing option for you at that time?
Again, it was just kind of that same feeling that I felt when talking to the guys at BC. It was just that kind of family kind of feeling. Like they wanted me there more. It felt like more than any other team. And that meant a lot to me, and that still holds value to me. And so that's what made me go there. And it was actually the school that I least wanted to go to, like heading into recruitment, and it completely flipped. And it was one of the smallest schools. But like I said, just that feeling of wanting to be there and them wanting me, makes you feel like, you're valued there, and that's where you want to go and play. You want to play for somebody like that.
Arkansas State is in the town of Jonesboro, Arkansas. I have that correct, Justin? Other than football, what's the highlight of Jonesboro? What's that famous for?
Absolutely nothing. Also, just the school. It was honestly kind of similar to Regina, where it's not really much going on. It's kind of just the football team or the school there, but the athletics side of it, and Jonesboro is just kind of boring place, to be honest.
With Regina, what's our spot, Matt? Leopold's Tavern in Victoria's?
Yeah, that's
where we go out, right?
Those places ring a bell, yes.
Is that somewhere you frequent too, Justin, or no?
The couple options. No, actually, I've had Victoria's Tavern a couple times. I don't think I've ever had Leopold's Tavern. I think I've
Leopold's,
seen
yeah.
it. It's right there on one of those main streets there. Yeah, no, but I've had Victoria's Tavern a couple times for sure.
Yeah, the thing about Vic's, as we call it, it's convenient. It's close to the hotel, and really, from a player perspective, on the road, sometimes, as you know, Justin, guys are looking to get a quick meal before watching film or whatever. But yeah, the thing here's the thing. I mean, you're obviously you take pride in your community. Whether it's Regina, any of those prairie cities, really, the people are outstanding. Was that kind of your overall sense playing with the Rough Riders? I mean, passionate football fans, but the people are excellent as well.
No, absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, even out in the community, I remember several times, even when like the snowfalls first came, I mean, that really stuck with me. Like my car got stuck immediately. And I think it was 6 or 7 people immediately like jumped out their cars and helped me on the road. Like they're always looking to offer a hand out there. That's with everything at the grocery store. Like always, I noticed that they have a really nice community over there for sure.
Yeah, word to the wise, if you're ever here for a bit of snowfall in Greater Vancouver, just leave your car at home is what I suggest, okay?
Why you say that?
Just people, when it comes to driving in the snow, let's just say people here aren't as prepared.
That's how it was when I was in Arkansas and Georgia. It felt like.
Oh yeah, might be even worse down there, but yeah.
Yeah, anytime there was a millimeter of snow, there was cars everywhere. It was crazy.
Before we let you go, Justin, what's next here? Is Jacksonville the plan until camp, or when are you planning to get up here to the Lower Mainland?
I'm here until training camp. I may try to come down a little bit early, just get a little head start on things, because again, I have my whole family coming down. I just kind of want to see the area, get used to it, and love to meet the guys before training camp actually starts, whoever's up there, and the whole staff, put a face for them, a real face for them to meet, the first impression, and just kind of jumpstart myself for training camp, get myself in the right mindset, prepared to go and compete.
Outside of football, are you a beach guy, a nature guy, a patio guy? Because the city of Vancouver really has it all.
No, and I'm excited about that because everywhere I've been, ever since I was 16 playing football, it's kind of been dry and boring and kind of plain. So I've been hearing a lot about how beautiful BC is, and I'm excited to finally get to come out there for my first time to really explore the area, meet the people and, see what everyone really talks about and the hype behind it.
Well, we look forward to it as well. Glad to have you aboard and keep the little one in line, and we'll talk to you soon, Justin.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Excellent stuff with Justin McInnis. Very excited to see where he fits in come training camp in Kamloops. And Nick, while we're talking about the receiver position here, we wanted to take some time here on this episode to really break down some of the key re-signings. One of those nuggets, you were with Farhan, I think, in Phoenix when he dropped that. All of a sudden, Dominique Rhymes was asking for a trade. Turns out crisis averted, and he's restructured and extended through 2024. We mentioned Rhymes a little bit in the first segment, but Dom joining the likes of Suk Chung, Woody Barron, guys who are sticking around here. And Rick Campbell talked about this in his media availability as well, Nick. Guys that are here beyond just 2023. Continuity is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very happy to hear the Rhymes extension news. That someone really can't afford to lose after the production he put up last season, and he's happy with his pay raise, and the team obviously got him back for 2 more seasons now. So it seems like a win-win situation on that end. And then having Sook back on that right guard spot as a leader on the O line, and getting Woody Barron back healthy for a full 18 games. Those are 3 important extensions.
And we've talked a lot this past year doing these episodes really about how the depth has gradually improved year by year. Another guy who ultimately requested out was more for personal and off-the-field business interest. Jordan Williams, outstanding rookie in 2021. And he's now a member of the Toronto Argonauts. So it's kind of a double whammy for me, Nick. Hate to use the word expendable, but you've got some Canadian linebacker depth there, particularly in the middle with the emergence of Ben Haladik last season. And it's also the added benefit of recouping a first-round pick, because remember, the Lions' own selection, number 7, belongs to Montreal after the Adams Jr. trade. So really a deal that Neil and Rick felt that they were comfortable making.
Exactly. You said it best. And Ben Haladik really is the key piece in all of this. His emergence as a 23-year-old Canadian linebacker. That's 5 years younger than Williams right now. So it does make sense to grant Williams his wish of moving back out east and then also move forward with Haladik in that middle spot. And then you also have another Canadian linebacker beside him in Bo Lacombo, who though that trio definitely split reps last season. The linebacker spots for the Lions. So, I wish Jordan the best. He's probably going to excel in Toronto too, but we're definitely still fine with more than fine with Haladik and Lacombo at these spots.
Yeah, Lacombo, another one who re-upped in the weeks before the free agency period opened. So nice mixture of veterans and youth at that position group. Something to be excited about. Going around the league here, what stood out to you on Tuesday? I, for one, think, again, it's easy to do when you have holes on your roster and money to spend, but I look at the Edmonton Elks as a team that should be watched here. Eugene Lewis, Stephen Dunbar, one of those linebackers we talked about, Kevin Francis, signing with Edmonton. That's what stood out to me. Don't sleep on the Elks in 2023. What do you like around the league here?
What I noticed was the quarterback movement. That's my first and foremost, the big story. It obviously came a couple weeks ago with Bo Levi Mitchell, but Trevor Harris now going to Saskatchewan, Cody Fajardo going to Montreal. Those are two pretty big moves. Another thing I liked was I think it's not a coincidence that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions were two of the quietest teams in free agency on day one yesterday. And I think that's because you look at what happened last season with these two rosters, the two best in the league, and making calculated additions, not spending a ton of money and going out and signing this guy, that guy, this guy, but making an addition that will make their team better and add to what you already have. And that's Kenny Lawler for Winnipeg. That's Michael Couture for us, right? But yeah, the like you said, the Elks, they're throwing money around. Gino Lewis got a payday.
Yeah, and that was if you're a Montreal Alouettes fan, that has to be unfortunate. And I know there's other factors going on with that franchise that we won't necessarily get into here, but yeah, that's Edmonton's gain. And again, I'm not declaring Edmonton or anyone else winners of free agency, because again, it's easy to quote unquote win free agency when you have holes on your roster and the money, the cap space to go along with it. And those were some moves that the Elks clearly had to make. And then low key, I like what Saskatchewan's done. We talked about Peter Godber departing. The offensive line was an area they clearly had to address. We'll see what those moves will do in the long run. But Trevor Harris, again, veteran guy, not young anymore, 37. So definitely on the back nine of his career. Going to have to be the oldest starting quarterback in the league, assuming McLeod Bethel Thompson doesn't re-sign in Toronto. And Macbeth might be even younger than Harris. I don't have that info in front of me. But it's going to be this division again, Nick. Calgary, one of the more quiet teams. They're obviously comfortable with what they have, but a couple of key losses for them as well. So we shall see. Always a fun time. I know player movement is something that turns the casual observer off in this league, but made for some exciting moves on the Tuesday.
Yeah, and then lastly, the team, I think I look to what the Lions here did last season. No one was declaring us the winners of free agency. They were saying, "Oh, they got Matthew Betts. I'm not sure about him. Luchez Purifoy, right?" But they were moves. They were calculated moves that made the team better in spots they need to be better in. I think the Argos are doing that this year. I love the addition of Forlane Ormalade they made at defensive end, and they also got a Darius Pickett, who is just a physical Sam linebacker, really underrated player. And I think that the Argos, they're making those not big, not a lot of moves, but those calculated moves, and they're going to be a physical team next year. You look at, they have Andrew Harris and AJ Ouellette back at running back. Curly Gittens is another physical, big-bodied receiver. They got Pickett on defense. Like, when you play the defending champs this year, you got to make sure you have your big boy pants on, because it's going to be a physical football game. So I think in the East, they're still going to be at the top.
We're going to play the Toronto-Hamilton Eastern Final right now. Like,
let's do it. Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Ticats signing a couple of key ex-Lions, and
this won't age poorly. Hey,
sorry,
this won't age poorly.
No, not at all. You can old takes expose us if it doesn't happen. Anyone listening out there, but I don't see a reason for it to go any other way right now. Wrapping things up here on First and Now, great football talk. Love doing it. What are you watching these days? You still pounding through the Game of Thrones? Is that your off-work activity right now?
That's my off-season project in the evenings right now is Game of Thrones, and I know I'm a decade late on this one. I tend to be with these massive TV shows. I just watched Breaking Bad the other year, for example, but the other night before I left for Arizona. Anyone who's watched Game of Thrones knows what this is. I watched the Red Wedding episode without knowing it going into it, so it just happened in front of my eyes without me expecting it. And that is maybe the most traumatizing television episode I've ever seen in my life. Game of Thrones is not meant for people with weak stomachs. It's a very gruesome show. And that episode took it to a whole nother level without spoiling anything. I don't know if the statute of limitation is up yet, but that episode was bananas. It almost ruined my night. Like, my stomach hurt after watching it, and that's all I'll say about it.
Yeah, I think spoilers are fine at this stage of that show. I've actually never watched Game of Thrones. I'm on a weird trend lately of these popular series I'm watching years late, like you've done. Like,
yeah,
I binged watched The Sopranos for the first time at the height of COVID. Automatically became a favorite. I just finished season 1 of The Wire. We might have talked a little bit. It's a little slower for me. I'm gonna stick with it because people have told me to stick with it. I enjoy it. I enjoy a few of the characters. Young guys, young Idris Elba, young Dominic West, these British actors who came over to North America back in 2002 and kind of hit it big with this series. So I'm gonna stick with it. It's another one I've watched late. Might have to do Game of Thrones at some point, but yeah, Breaking Bad and The Sopranos are two of my favorite shows of all time for sure. So may have to add Game of Thrones to the list. Maybe in camp. Usually try to watch something in training camp. So he is at Nick _Kowalski on Twitter. Again, you can check out his Pat McAfee content. I'm at Bakes Takes 84. The podcast is on Twitter at First and Now. Make sure to subscribe, rate, leave a review. And thanks for listening on your favorite platform. Next week, we will be back at the Wall Center, if all goes according to plan. And we thank everyone for listening to First and Now.